Hey pretty geeks! So yesterday I made a video for a craft with me and I was planning on popping it into the Sophie and Toffee unboxing video, but it became really long and um, it has a lot of editing that needs to be done on it. So I am uploading it separately here and I hope you enjoy it anyway. It is a little different, but it kind of shows actually using of the supplies, which I thought was really neat. And yeah, obviously I've still been sick, so my voice is really weird in it. Like really strange. Um, but I'm just getting over bronchitis, so my voice was super weird yesterday. And I think that's it. Let's go do some crafting, okay?
All right, so we're kind of set up now. Kind of a weird top-down moment going on. So I'm thinking I want to make her little star wands, and I love this little fairy charm, so I would like to make her that as well. And I was really curious about these, so I don't know if I'm going to be using them in an actual product, but I want to try them out. I want to see how they work and kind of give them a go. So I'm on a nail mat. It's an old one from Twinkle Tea. I don't know if you can see that it has a little silicone cup over here that folds down, pulls up. I have my isopropyl alcohol for cleaning and kind of wiping up any resin that may spill. And you can use it in a tiny amount to thin down resin or dyes. So what I want to do to start is I'm going to mix a little bit, and you can see my little cup here. So let's see. Okay, I think that'll do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up a little bit of the resin with a little bit of the dye, and I'm going to pop my UV light underneath here. Try to go with that. So all the instructions are right on there. So I have an LED light here. So it says 2 minutes with a UV light for this one, and the thicker one again says 2 minutes for both sides, or it can be 30 seconds on both sides for the crystal gel. I'm going to start with the crystal gel and kind of see the consistency and the smell. Add just a little bit to start. Oh, it's not as bad. It's not actually as bad as the thinner one. And I've got these really lovely pinks, so I want to see how the pink consistency actually comes out. Oh, if it wants to come out. It's quite liquidy in the bottle, but ooh. Might have just hardened up a little bit. So I will mess with that at another time. I'm just gonna dip my little metal stir stick in and grab a little bit of dye. Really don't need much at all. Yeah, see, still stays quite hot pink. So next, I want to actually add a little bit of pearl pigment, and then I think I'm going to up the amount of UV too, since I am using so much color, because we don't want it to not cure. So, scoop. Yeah. And since this is all silicone, the resin won't actually stick to it, which is super cool. Yeah, it's kind of clunky in the bottom, so I'm just gonna mix it anyway manually. So yeah, if you cook the resin, put a little light on it, There she went. It'll peel right off, which is really neat. It's a really neat way to do a lot of filling, is put them on a silicone mat. You can use like packing tape or other types of tape. Some types of tape, especially like painter's tape, will peel off nicely, but it will leave you with a different texture. Add just a little bit of clear, which will make it a little bit more translucent, but will also help us make sure that it does actually cure. So kind of blend it in. I'm gonna mix this one really nice, and then I'm gonna actually add a tiny bit more, just so it has like cool swirl dimension. Okay, make sure it's all mixed up well. Okay, and then just a tiny bit, and you can use like little medicine cups. You can mix it straight onto a flat silicone thing. I like using this one because if I'm making a little bit more, if I'm trying to like mixing glitters, I like the cup, because the cup actually expands upwards, which is pretty neat. Cool. So I'm not going to incorporate them all the way, so it stays kind of swirly. I'm going to start putting it into the star. Just scooping up a little bit at a time. Trying to keep it in the star shapes. So it makes pretty sparkly stars. And it is a bit thicker. It's kind of nice. I was expecting it to be like weird thick, but it's actually really easy to handle and use. I'm a fan of it so far. And it's definitely not as stinky either. Definitely like, it just has just like the tiniest hint of a smell. Okay, that's a good first layer. I'm going to slide it into its light, and there we go. Give it 30 seconds. Okay, and it's all cooked up. Doesn't look any different, but you see it's hardened. So I didn't flip it and do the other side because I'm actually just going to keep layering. So got my little pink one. Since it's in the little cup, it's totally protected. So I'm going to add some more clear to it. And I'll show you to add a little bit of glitter. Now, using UV resin, you can mix the glitter in a little bit differently than if you do a 2-part resin, which is like a time-based cure, because then the glitter tends to sink and move around a lot. It kind of does its own thing because the curing time can be quite long. Some of them are up to like 72 hours, just like sitting. So I'm going to fill the stars a little bit more and then actually start putting it into the wrapping. That was one thing I wasn't sure about, was if it was going to be tricky to get into some of the details. But even though it is thicker than some of the more runny resins, it's still really easy to kind of ease its way into some of those details. And if you're using a mold that you want it to settle into, because it's UV, if you don't have like strong sunlight, you can actually just kind of let it hang out for a little while and, you know, let gravity help you out. And I find it super duper relaxing, so I hope y'all like it too. And do up here. Really impressed. But the runny ones, they do. I mean, they do just that. They run a bit if you try to fill some of the details in the mold. So it's nice for if you want to like fill a first layer, but it's not as easy if you want to, like how on this one you see how it has like a wrapped wood effect. It wouldn't be as easy to keep some of that in there, you know? Whereas these ones, if you kind of just set it on, it'll stay in its little home. They're really neat. So I'm just gonna keep working it in there. And the pearl pigment worked really nice. It really blended well. I'm not sure what they put in it because it doesn't smell like alcohol, and usually when you have a liquid mica, it's just a mica powder in alcohol a lot of the time. So I'm not sure what they use in theirs. Oofta. Oh, that was something I was going to mention too. If you are cleaning, you can kind of wipe things up with isopropyl alcohol, rubbing alcohol. If you've got like little mess things to kind of clear up, so long as the resin's not cured yet. But if it's on something like this, where it is the silicone, you can cook it. You can put your little light over it. I'm using just a nail lamp, and you take that and, you know, do its little heat up time, shine a little light on it for a couple seconds. It'll cure it and it will peel right off. I was in the middle of saying that. I got distracted because it's quite pretty. Smidgy parts off. Yeah, I think that looks quite nice so far. You kind of learn how things are going to demold as you are working. You know, you use the molds a few times, and you kind of get the hang of what details are where, especially if, you know, you're not the one making the mold. Obviously, I didn't make these, so I'm not totally certain how all of the details will look. All right, let's go in for another 30 seconds. Okay, so this time I cooked it one side. I did flip it over and do the other 30 seconds on this side. You can kind of see some of the details are starting to show now. And I cooked it once more on this side, just to be certain. It's kind of overkill, but I did like a last minute design change, and I wanted to make sure that all the colors work well. I want to kind of make the actual wood detail a little bit darker. So I've got some of the silver black that came in the kit, and that's a really cool liquid pigment. And then I'm actually going to take this, oh, that was a lot, this bronzy one, I can't remember what it's called, and it is a powder pigment, as you see. It came out quite quickly. And I'm going to give the liquid one a try. This is the kind that I tend to buy as well. Oofta. Are you opened properly? Nope, it's not. Oof. Alright, and this is really important. I was a little bit concerned, but yeah, something was wrong with it. It is in the bottle pre-cured. So that is a super big bummer. I was really excited to show y'all that style of thin type. So maybe in the future I will show y'all, because I do have not this brand. I carry my own brand. So I do have my own brand of that kind. So I'll show you another time. I'll just go back to using the thicker one. Ooh! It poofed quite a bit. All right. So, it's quite tricky to squeeze out if you want a whole lot of it. And mix the powder in really, really well, which is obviously really going to thicken it up quite a bit more, and then kind of swirl that black in. That looks quite pretty. Okay, so nice and incorporated. Kind of just swirl the black in so it's a little, so we've got a little bit of swirl going on. Micah already kind of swirls quite a bit, so it doesn't need much to have a really punchy effect. And I get it into the mold now. Here we go. Here we get it. All the edges. So while you're filling the mold, kind of push it around, push it into the different details a little bit. We can always clean off the mold itself before cooking it, so it doesn't end up wonky edged. You just want to really make sure that you push it in there. I feel like it has an actual name, like a physics term of why it does that. Like it doesn't flow super easily, but if you put some of it into an area, it'll like all connect. It's really neat. So it really doesn't have like self-leveling properties at all as far as like open areas, but once it's like in a set environment, it'll kind of self-level a little bit. That is one benefit you get for like 2-part resins, is they tend to be so slow to set that that they'll self-level really quite well. Not perfect. Nothing never does anything totally and completely perfectly, but go back in and just make sure you fill in. You see how I did kind of level a little bit, like I was saying? There's room in some of these to kind of add an extra smidgen of a drop. So it's so nice and thick that you can really kind of just scoop some up and touch the areas, and it wants to stay by itself. Cook this one. And pop it in for 30 seconds, and then I'm thinking I'm gonna flip it just because it is a thicker, darker one with such a heavy pigment. I'll flip it and do another 30 as well. Okay. Really turning out quite nice so far. I think it's got a lot of really nice detail. So I'm going to put in a little bit more into this mold, especially because it's got some gapping. I think this side might be just about ready. It's got like one little bubble that came through. But I'll fill in this side a bit more, and then we will demold. It's still quite flexible, so it tells me that it's not cooked all the way through, which is normal with that amount of. There we go. Snapped that piece, my gracious. Yep, so it is partially, let's see, it's a little liquid on the inside. So since I popped a couple, I'm actually going to break it in a few pieces. Make it look intentional. Might help with the wood effect a little bit. So I'm going to change the color of the new wood a tiny bit. Ooh, could I break it right here? A little, yeah, and kind of remix that. Oh, let's get to that. So that's it. Okay, so I did give it an extra 30 seconds and some time to rest because it was feeling still quite fragile. So I think that's one of the problems with a double mold is not only is it harder for it to get some of its light in, because the pieces themselves are so fragile, if one starts breaking, the other one might as well. Or even if one is quite in good shape, it can just be kind of tricky to get them out. So you see they are incredibly fine. They're so thin. I'm so scared of breaking it. I kind of carefully pop them out. It did retain the detail really beautifully. Some of the color leaking occurred, but not really anything I can do about that one. I think I'm going to do a bit of painting on top of them anyway when they're all done. So I think they'd be quite nice attached to a book, actually. That's what was my first thought when I was seeing them. Was kind of putting some glue on and putting them on a book. So I wonder if they are supposed to attach. That is my thought. Ah, they are. Okay, they line up perfectly to attach to one another. I don't know about using using the resin to attach. That is what the instructions described, but I feel like using like a strong adhesive that doesn't need light might actually work better. Obviously there are some areas where they just didn't cure properly. See, it's still quite sticky in some spots. I'm going to cook them. I'm going to naked cook them and see if that helps. So I'm reading a little bit more on here, and it says to obviously to leave it cure time, which is what I talked about, that there was like a difference with them cooling, but that in accordance with the depth of a silicone mold to increase the cure time. It doesn't say how much, and says the suitable curing depth is 3 to 10 millimeters, so it should be curing a little bit better than it is. So I just popped it on, and I was going to do a straight 99-second cook. Again, in my Color Cure Light. I use the Jamberry ones because those are what I have. I used to have quite the Jamberry addiction. And I'm hoping that because they are naked now, that they will attach a bit better. And it's kind of just going to keep doing its thing. The 99-second tends to be a little bit stronger than the 30 and the 60. So I think that that will help quite a bit. And then I'm going to grab some adhesive and actually pop the sides together and such. So gonna finish up the 99 seconds on this one and then do another 30 seconds just in case. And we'll see where we are then. Okay, so I have cooked it quite a few more times than I said I would. Because it still had like a sticky area. So it's a tad warm now, but there's no more sticky transfer, so we're good. Sorry, I had to go get some adhesive because I could not find mine. I go through a rather lot of adhesive making some of the things that I do. So I'm going to try out Dazzle Tack, which was quite cheap at the Hobby Lobby. And I line them up. Now it's not dry yet, but I'm going to start putting a bit of the leftover colored UV resin here onto some of the wood so I can start getting A, some extra texture, and B, covering up some of these seams here. So since I'm going to be painting them a little bit anyway, I'm not super worried about the fact that it's obviously quite brown. Yeah, I think it'll help actually with some of the aged look of it. And we've got a nice pink base for the stars. I think that's really what matters. I haven't really decided what the wrappings are going to be. I think I actually want to go with like a metallic of some sort. So now I'm going to hold it in for the 30 seconds and kind of let it just cure in my hands, so staying as still as possible, which isn't the easiest because I have quite shaky hands actually. I'll do it kind of in a lot of little bursts, since obviously this glue is drying and degassing. We don't want to move the new resin that we're applying now too much, because it will, like we saw before, really crack quite a bit, quite easily. Because it is so thin, it is a bit more fragile. So I'll cover it, smooth it about. I'll help it from looking so very smooth as well, because I don't want it to be totally smooth since it's going to be wood. It's supposed to be like a wood. I want it to be a wooden wand, basically. So I don't want it to be completely and utterly smooth. There we go. little steep. Start on the next side. Also a nice way to kind of get the colors around the different areas. So see, I'm not cooking it right away. I want the resin to kind of go into the cracks a little bit more, kind of fill in any of the holes that are there. And then I'll cook and then do another layer. Kind of slowly. The resin is really not the sort of craft that is made to be done quickly. You really kind of give it the time it needs. Both for application, curing, getting all those details in. I think they all turn out so pretty. It's hard to make ugly. It doesn't have anything. It's such a neat experience. We'll pop it in for a full minute since there is so much detail and it is so deep. I'm just going to use a nail file. A glass nail file is going to be quick. It will change really a lot of the texture, but we want to get rid of some of these ridged parts. I'm going to fill in just some of the deeper parts. And keep it moving. Yeah, that looks quite nice. And good enough saved on the other side to finish it up. So I'm going to give it 60 on both edges, and then I'm going to let it cool completely and then sand with my handy dandy nail file. All right. So I'm going to take my glass file and get rid of all of the high points, most of which could have been avoided if I had wiped the mold like I had said, and then didn't do. So, oops, snapped it right off. Oopsies. Oh, it's still quite wet on the inside. I'm really intrigued by that. Never had that happen before. That's odd. All right. well, let's give it a quick 30 seconds and then we'll glue it. Yeah? All right. The light's not too harsh. I'm going to give it some light every couple seconds because it is just shattering. The whole core of it is complete liquid. So as I'm going, it's breaking a bit. So I'm just putting in the light so it like kind of saves itself. Yeah. I don't know. I've never seen a UV resin do that. I'm just not care. Obviously I do quite a bit of resin sculpting, so I'm not new by any means. So it might just be a difference in getting used to this kind. It might not take pigment as well and be a little bit too pigmented to actually, I don't know, like get the light to reach maybe. Kind of the idea that I have there. So I'm going to keep working on filing, but just with the light on. So long that it's not overly warm. And just make sure you don't file the actual broken edge, because then we'll re-glue it when we're all done. And yeah, we did say they wanted a cool textured approach, so it will definitely be quite textured with all these neat little cracks in there, you know? Make sure you're not too warm. Roll it. There we go. So I think maybe I'll try it again once with just put like straight clear in and see if that doesn't alleviate the issue. You know, it'll allow you to use like alcohol inks then maybe, and then cure properly. I don't usually use actual resin pigments. I typically use alcohol inks. I think that's looking quite nice. It's not so bad. Not so bad at all. So, glue this silly edge back up. Yeah, kind of glued it over and then kind of like moved glue around as it was curing, so it'll look like another wrap about. And then once it's dried just a little bit more, I'm gonna smooth. Got just a little bit, just a tiniest bit of resin. I'll spoon. It's kind of smooth over the top too. All right, let's do this super, super gingerly. Put a little extra here. Reinforce it as well as kind of blend in the glue itself to look like a bit of wrapping. Not too rough on it. I'll slide the light to it. There we go. Alright. So now I've kind of finished that bit, so now I'm just kind of gingerly kind of messing with it as it cures. Just a little bit at a time to kind of give it like a slight woody texture, you know. Make it look like all the flaws are purposeful, you know. Still really, really quite fragile. I think if you're going to make one of these, whether it was for personal use or business, I would definitely recommend trying it with the full clear, getting it all attached properly first, and then doing color. These the mica doesn't seem to be letting it dry properly. You know, if the light can't reach it, then it can't ever really cure. It's the only big downside to using a UV resin is obviously it won't cure over time the way that a 2-part will. Yeah, so it takes quite some time. It takes lots of little bursts. It's not bad if you're patient, or you know, that's how your focus works too. I say that I'm into watercolor painting because I have to work so fast, do so much, and take breaks in between, you know, like to flatten the paper back out and things like that. But the actual painting steps itself, I have to go so fast just to function right paint-wise. A friend of mine just got me some oil paints, and I was like, oh, it has been literally over a decade since I even tried to use oil paints. I'm really quite excited. I'm just going to give it a full minute, maybe even 2. Maybe I'll even just roll it about and then come back. Okie dokie, all done. It's cool again. And now I want to decorate a bit. I was going to traditionally paint it, and then I was thinking, I already have this light out. Why not use nail polishes? The LED like gel nails works awesome. So I'm going to put a little bit of this base coat first. Do it kind of sparingly on like the ropey type details, and then pretty heavily on the stars. Leave me enough room to use my hands. And then I'm going to take just this little brush, tap it into the powder, tap it on the stars. You could, of course, paint them first, or use like a colored polish. But I'm thinking that it would just be really quite pretty as is, just to add a little bit of sparkle. I rather like how kind of naturally it's looking. So I've got fine glitter, and then the same like chunky glitter that we use to give a little bit of texture and fullness. Yeah. I missed one of the little stars down here. Okay. Just kind of shimmer it up a little bitty bit. A pretty subtle detail, but I think worthwhile, definitely. Yeah. Now we'll cure that. And it says to cure in 30 seconds to 2 minutes. Wow. That's quite the range. And then top coat it to kind of seal it in too. And these types of polishes, they are really quite good if you want to kind of shine up your piece and don't want to or have the ability to dome it. You know, it's not really the most ideal choice for like a long-term like jewelry solution, something that you wear a whole lot. But for like sculptural pieces especially, it can be nice for just like little details. Dripping. It's a nice quick one, especially like if you use like a mold that's like it's not super shiny and you wish it to be. It's quite nice, and they have all different finishes, all different textures. They play nice together, really. And make sure that something that's non-yellowing. Usually the nail ones are good for that, but it's not a guarantee, obviously. But when I started, I was using a lot of nail polishes, and even like just regular traditional nail polish works for some things. So that's what I'm gonna do. I do have a matte top coat, but I'm going to use just regular matte Mod Podge over the wood because I want some of the I want some brush stroke texture, and my my matte gel nail polish is just a little too smooth. I want it to be a bit imperfect, you know, where so beautifully imperfect as it is, that I just want to kind of keep going with that. You're getting some really cool texture up front there. Oh, the tip is so fragile. Oof. So yeah, definitely is a fragile piece. I don't think that it would really even do super well being shipped, really. Unless you could be quite clever about the packaging. I think I'm gonna try to figure it out, of course. I think actually I've got these tubes that some of my tools come in, like my different brushes and such, that I might try that. I'm going to put it on a bit heavy at first, and then as it starts kind of drying, but before it hits like that actual like I'm drying now step, run back over it with a brush so it's a little less smooth, and now avoid getting it on the wrappings and the stars. I just want to dull some of its shimmer a little. Look a little bit more woody without going full wood effect, you know? It's turned into quite a long project. Such a tiny little thing. Quite soothing though. My fingertips are on fire. Most people say, you know, you should wear protective gear when messing with resin. I never do. Not very smart. They are a bit warm. Not painful, but it's a little uncomfortable. I'm going to keep the light on it. can't really become too cured. And it's quite cool being out here in the open bit. So, not really a downside to having it on. It can really only help. Unless it's like horrifically hard to see. I guess I'll see that when I check the footage. It's just horrendous and unusable. I haven't taken this much footage in a very long time. Yeah. There we are, getting quite tall. And I think this actually might be someone that's fun to do Posca pen details. If you do it all in clear, maybe. I'm not certain, but it might be really quite cool. Alright, that's neat. That's really quite neat. So I'm going to cook it a few times and then let it dry completely. Go wash my brush with some acetone, alcohol, and otherwise. Yeah. Plus, I'm gonna cook. Yeah, start scooting it over here. We'll start cooking the mess off as well. Let's clean up. Okay, so it's all cooked off. Everything else is going to scrape up pretty nicely, and what we want is done. Look at that! Oh. Alright, she's a fragile baby, but she's so cute. Should we glamour shot her? Let's get some wand glamour shots.